Mike Mondo, how are you?
How you doing there? How's everything going? Thanks a lot for having me on your show.
Of course, thank you so much for being here. You've had a very fun career in my eye. I'm sure it's not over yet. But how do you feel like chit-chatting a little bit about your some happenings that happened in the last 20 years for you?
Oh man, I've been very blessed to have a lucky career, and a great career. And just like you said yourself, just getting going. I'm still going,
Yeah.
still going strong. Had some health issues in the past, but that's all cleared, and I'm like ready to. I got cleared by doctors, ready to go again, and I'm excited to have my head in the game. Get myself back out there. Gosh, I got a few shows in September. My October is looking pretty packed, and teaching at the wrestling school at FTW here in Largo. That's been a lot of fun with Brian Idol, and yeah, I'm just happy to be back in the mix. And you're going to see a bigger, better version, the best, hopefully the best ever of Mike Mondo going forward.
Mhm. That's really, really cool to hear. Before we get started about your career, your early beginnings in New York, I wanna kind of throw a little something at you. It's this bad boy right here.
Ooh,
That's right. I had to dig this up for my little action figure pile. But how
yeah,
how cool is this? Going back, I think I want to say this maybe came out in 2006 or so, right
yeah.
when the Spirit Squad thing was going on. How did it feel to kind of grow up to be a wrestling fan and now be forever immortalized in terms of an action figure?
I love the word demoralized. Yeah, man, you couldn't have put it better. Gosh, I remember like it really like it hit me like I'm because when we did those screenings, for
Hmm.
the action figure, it was down in LA. And I remember they put me in this machine, and they're, scanning my face,
Yeah.
and they're like, make this emotion, make that emotion, and I'm like, okay, so like, but I just remember like telling the person that was making the figures, I was like, if you just do me one favor, just make sure my figure's extra jacked, So,
I don't
but
know. I see a lot of definition on here, so I think they did a pretty good job.
I think so, man. He's got the biceps going. He's got the triceps popping out. But I remember I used to joke with myself, because like I was as a kid, I was, I was obviously a huge wrestling fan. So I
Mhm.
like it was like, man, I got to mom, can I buy an action figure? You know what I mean? So it was like I remember when my figure came out, it was like I kind of just ribbed myself a little bit, and I went to go buy myself off the freaking shelves, and I just like put it in front of the counter. It's like, yeah, and they're just, they're scanning it, and I'm just like, wow, I'm just kind of buying myself. This is
Yeah.
kind of really weird.
Yeah, how did it feel like to kind of I have have it in your hand? Like literally, we all play with action figures as we grow up, but now it's like literally being able to like, wow, like this is me, and this is forever going to be me. And do you
Yeah,
still have people coming up to you and kind of like, hey man, can you sign my Mikey action figure?
yeah, and that's the really cool part is like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like when the Spirit Squad like ended and everything like that, like you kind of wonder like down the road, are people gonna remember you,
Mhm.
or like how's it gonna be and stuff like that. But it's yeah, people still remember like to this day. I do autograph signings, conventions. I just did one in New Jersey not too long ago, and it was like I signed like a pack of them. Like it was
Mhm.
just people still like big toy collectors and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yeah, the answer is yeah. I still sign them to this day, and it's pretty wild, and it's really really cool actually. And I love the facial, like it even has my chin. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty down to the detail, like the frame and everything. Very
Yeah.
impressive.
I gotta tell you,
Mhm.
just even as a fan, when I was able to complete, because they didn't sell them individually. I think there was like packs of two and packs of two, and then like I think Mitch came by himself. I was like, oh my god, like I finally got all five of them. I don't know, just
Yeah.
personal accomplishment to have all five members of the Spirit Squad for myself. But yeah, let's go back to even before you were an action figure. Growing up in New York,
Yep.
signing up with Mikey Whipwreck School. Am I right?
Well, before it was Mikey Whipwreck kind of became in the mix, it was
Mm-hmm.
actually opened up by John Curse, and he was actually the owner. He was my original trainer. Yeah, like back in like what you said, like 2002.
Mm-hmm.
It's called NYWC right now, but back in the day when I first joined, it was called Critical Mass Pro Wrestling. And yeah, that's where I started. John was my trainer, and then Mike Mayhem also was my trainer. Who was a wrestler from New York, and that's kind of like where I got my roots started in Long Island, Hicksville, New York. Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about the mindset because there's a lot of people out there just, being in Los Angeles myself, there's a lot of cool wrestling schools out here, a lot of cool people talking about being a wrestler, but there's a certain mindset that people have about thinking about being a wrestler, talking about being a wrestler, and actually joining a school and signing up to become a wrestler. Was it always for you becoming a wrestler? Or was there any kind of process of like, I'll think about it, and you know what? I think it's actually time to pull the trigger and actually go for it.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Wow. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I've known people. In fact, one of my best friends growing up was actually kind of like the example that you just gave right there. Like,
Mhm,
he wanted to do it, he was thinking about it,
mhm,
but he just never actually really pulled the trigger.
mhm.
And I was the same way as my friend, but I actually went through with it. And the answer to your question is yes. Once I was always a wrestling fan growing up. I
Mhm.
mean, really, I remember my earliest memory. Seriously, it might be just for a glimpse, but I was 4 years old.
Mhm.
Sitting in my dad's lap watching Hulk Hogan.
Mhm.
And then as I got older, I mean, Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler,
Mhm.
my hero growing up and
You,
stuff
you
like
got
that.
you got the pink and black without probably even thinking
I,
about
you
it.
know, just representing, baby.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it got to the point where it was like, I always knew I was going to get into the wrestling business. I just didn't know when.
Mhm.
Because I was really big into sports growing up. Football was actually another love of mine. And basically, long story short, I had two dreams in life. It was either to be in the NFL or the WWE.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try to sum it up. Is that basically, I always knew you can get into wrestling, but like the NFL, there's a shelf life, right? Obviously, because you get out of college, you're gonna do it then or there, or the odds of becoming a walk on when you're older gets really, really even more slimmer than what it really is. But actually, I didn't do very well on my SAT score, so I
Mhm.
had to go to a community school. And then it was supposed to be 1 year, but then actually that 1 year turned into two. And then I kind of got frustrated. And I'm like, you know what? I always believe the sooner you can get into something, the better odds that you have of making it. For example, hockey players in the NHL, they know how to skate before they can walk, right?
Mhm.
So I just kind of used that mentality. And then it was just like, what I felt in my heart, I was like, it's time. Like, we're going to do this right now, and then we'll let the chips fall as they may, if wrestling kind of takes off and goes the way it does, then we'll do that. If I'm still just in wrestling school and nothing's really happening, I can put a halt on it, transfer, play ball, come back to wrestling later on.
Mhm.
I always knew I was going to come back to wrestling. But that being said, in conclusion, with that structure that I had in my mind and brain and took action on, when I got into wrestling, it just took off, and
Mhm.
then there was no turning back after that. And then football that was the end of that run, and wrestling's what it was and what it is and always will be to this day.
How long was it before when you started training to your first match that you had?
Yeah, so gosh, honestly, I would say about 6 months.
Mhm.
6 months, and then I actually had my first match. I remember it was at a show at Hofstra University against a wrestler named the Grim Reaper, who led me like a tramp. He
Mhm.
led me like a champ, man.
Mhm.
Kevin's a great guy, and I always be grateful for him, and always very kind to me. And yeah, it was so surreal. Like it was like I just had my first match, and
Mhm.
I remember my parents were there. It was quite the moment, and then yeah, just the rest of it kind of just went off from there.
Do you have footage of it? We're not gonna. I'm not gonna try to find it, but do you have footage of that first
If no,
match?
please, I am like, if I will
If
appreciate
anybody has, yeah.
if you can find it. If you can find it, oh man, dude, I would owe you huge. I'm still looking forward to this day.
Yeah.
Every now and then it'll pop in my mind because there's some footage I always want, and a lot of times I'm able to get. But man, I can't find this first match of mine,
Mm.
and I want to get it so bad.
Yeah, and anybody out there listening, I guess you can say a reward if anybody was able to find,
Reward, yes.
yeah, a big reward if you're able to find it. So making your name out on that East Coast, New York, New Jersey area, eventually you found yourself branching off to other parts of the country. Were you trying to go to other places first, or was it from there to Ohio Valley?
Yeah, no. So basically, I was so young and obviously green. Like I really didn't know. I knew how it went, but I didn't know really how it goes. You know what I mean? So I really basically once I had that first match, obviously I'm still going to wrestling class.
Hmm.
I didn't miss. So I was very, very dedicated. I was student of the game. But I kind of just listened to my coaches, and I just kind of took direction, and I just trusted that they would take the wheel and lead me in the right direction. And that's kind of what happened, pretty much. So it started out with, I was my coaches were able to get me booked for a promotion in Jersey called JCW. I think I did a show for CZW one time. I think my third match was against my trainer, Ingram Reefer, actually. And then I was always very close. One of my first friends in wrestling was a guy by the name of Pat Buck. He's
Okay,
actually
yeah,
one of the AEW, I think, in the office right now.
yeah.
Yeah. So we were really close growing up, and I remember like back when AOL was around. AOL was the messenger.
Hmm.
he sent me an IM, and he's like, sent me a link to the Ohio Valley Wrestling. It was a tryout camp. And obviously WWE was always my dream, and OVW
Hmm.
was the minor league system to WWE. So it was like, I took this proposal to my parents, and I was like, it was like $1,000 1 week tryout run by Dr. Tom Pritchard, Jim Cornette, Danny Davis, Rip Rogers, Rocky Johnson was there at the time. And we both did that. And then, it was pretty much, if you get accepted to this camp, that $1,000 goes towards the tuition.
Hmm.
Obviously you have to relocate. And then basically under a year, I would, pretty much Ohio Valley Wrestling came into my life, and I relocated my life at 19 years old.
Wow. And a lot of people kind of think of OVW as, it was the breeding ground for a lot of the guys in WWE, but when people think OVW, they think of the Cena, the Brock, the Orton. Were you there around that time, or did you show up a little bit after they got called up to the main roster?
Yeah, no, I was like an era or two after that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still, like you said, that was the place where it molded a lot of superstars, and
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of guys go on like and become stars. Matt Morgan,
Hmm.
CM Punk. I mean, gosh, the list goes on and on about the guys that came through that. I always put over as OVW as like the Harvard of pro wrestling.
Hmm.
I mean, it was, when I went to NYWC, it's like I learned how to do a lot of moves, and they trained me very, very well, right, with the right locker room etiquette, and just basically, it was a good foundation for me. You know what I mean? I love chain wrestling, how to wrestle, just the safety of it, and just pretty much those aspects. But really, when I learned how to work, so
Hmm.
it's like I learned how to wrestle in NYWC, but I learned how to work in
Hmm.
OVW. OVW is where that light bulb went off for me. And I remember sitting in the stands, and I'm watching Doug Basham and Nick Dinsmore in the ring, and they're chain wrestling around, and they keep on going back to the head, they keep on going back to the arm. And then that like light bulb went off for me, like as far as psychology goes. Oh, so this is how you do it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And that was like, obviously I got a lot of light bulbs that went off gradually throughout my career, but that was one huge light bulb that went off. I remember in that moment where I kind of started to really kind of grasp and figure things out, how the art of pro wrestling really works.
And you were in OVW during that transition between Cornette and Heyman, am I right?
I was in both eras, and that's
Yeah.
one thing about me is that like when you really sum up my career, um, when it's all said and done, right, as of now today, about 10 years I spent at OVW.
Mm.
So I've seen a lot of people come, I've seen a lot of people go. I've worked for, I mean, as far as people that actually booked the show, Jim Cornette, obviously a huge influencer of mine, and
Mhm.
I love Jim. If it wasn't for Jim, I wouldn't have half the breaks they had in the wrestling business today. Always be grateful for Jim. Then there was Paul Heyman. Actually, then there was actually Lance Storm, who was
Mhm.
kind of helping out with Danny Davis writing the show after
Mhm.
Jim left, and then that's when Paul Heyman came into the mix. And then I was actually, and what a mind, what a genius, he is. Just very similar to Cornette, but yet just a little different.
Yeah.
He really knows how to accentuate people's strengths, as far as from a show product goes, and to hide people's weaknesses. And I was able to learn a lot from Paul, as like I did with Jim. So I kind of get the best of both worlds there, which is a lot of good, valuable experience. And then at the Paul Heyman, it was Al Snow writing the show.
Mhm.
So he was like, played a big part in writing OVW TV for a while, And then I think it's just like, and in between those gaps of those transitions, Danny Davis would write the show. So it was like, and Danny Davis, I'll always be grateful for, because he opened up
Mhm.
those doors for me at
Yeah.
OVW. He actually was the first person that suggested that I become a trainer.
Mhm.
So I was a trainer at such a young age, and like training the non-contract guys in the WWE developmental system, and training his beginner classes and the amateur classes, and also helping out Rick Rogers in the intermediate classes. And I'm like, what am I, 20? I don't know, 22 years old. So it's like, it's just like obviously he has the experience and the mind and the eye, and for him to actually see that in me, and when I really didn't know because I'm so young,
Mhm.
but I was just had a passion for this and I love this stuff so
Yeah.
much. He saw that, and I guess, here I am today, and obviously he was right, because I think I'm pretty good at it.
Going back a little bit to Cornette and Heyman, just because we always hear about those guys are practically the same person, just born in different areas of the country. What do you think were some of the differences and some of the similarities between the two style? Because even going back to OVW days, I heard so many great things about Paul Heyman's version of OVW, where I literally went to the website and ordered because they would sell DVDs monthly. July '05, August '05, and I'm like, dude, I bought literally like a year's worth of OVW DVDs, and I was just hooked. I thought this was such amazing TV. And even going back to the Cornette era, but what do you think were some of the things that stood out from each person that you learned from?
Yeah, absolutely, that's great. Well, trying to put this into words. Okay, so like you said, they're both very similar, right?
Hmm.
With Jim Cornette, right? It was very he was like the matchmaker, and like he would come out and he would go through each different segment with you. And Jimmy was very big on like in-ring promos, like he would be in the ring with the microphone and doing in-ring promos, as well as backstage promos and stuff like that. And just like kind of like like that old school way of kind of like with that television format and
Hmm.
stuff. And Jimmy was great because he knew it, just like with Paul, he knew how to accentuate people's strengths and like hide people's weaknesses and stuff like that. He knew how to put people in the ring with other guys that weren't as experienced, that can kind of really kind of carry and level them up and kind of like put them on the same equal playing field. But Jimmy was very big on like a traditional wrestling, like, in ring stick, kind of promos and stuff like that. Where Paul was on the flip end, and Jimmy would do like his shows in like kind of like just segments, you know what I mean? Where like Paul would kind of doing like one revolving big segment of the show, if that makes sense. So it's
Hmm.
like it might open with the pre-tape, and then that might transition into a match, and
Hmm.
then end back into a pre-tape, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's one segment. Where like Jimmy would have like a backstage segment, that's one, promo match, that's segment two, segment, three, and stuff like that. But with Paul, like how Jimmy was big on like in-ring promos, like with the microphone, the stick, like going back and forth. Paul was different because like Jimmy never did backstage vignettes, and if he did, it was very, very rare and very seldom. Paul would do a lot of backstage vignettes, and like I said, kind of just like I said before, evolve and bounce one segment after another, and kind of just combine and just kind of keep the show rolling that way. You know what I mean? And Paul was great also at, like I said, accentuating people's strengths
Hmm.
and really bringing the best out of them. If they were a great talker, then that's what they were basically focused on. Majority of their TV time was promos. If they weren't really a great wrestler, their wrestling matches were very, very short, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but very like laid out, and doing what they do well. And yeah, that was pretty much just like the pretty much the main similarities and difference between the two. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it totally does. And it was around this time where I guess they gave you a new uniform to put on, a spirit uniform. Was there any kind of mental preparation in becoming this character? Maybe you and the other guys at the Spirit Squad. Was there Bring It On binge watching? Was you guys watching all the sequels? Like, was it just like, all right, this is what we are, or was it like, all right, well, now we're this, let's make it the best this, so let's make sure we're ready for whatever they bring us.
Yeah, no, that's good. Actually, there was something like we pretty much just went into that open ended, pretty much
Mhm.
like that. Like I don't think we watched any movies like Bring It On and stuff like that. But but for me, I can speak personally speaking that I was very prepared for that gimmick, only
Mhm.
because I was a football player growing up.
Mhm.
and we had the cheerleaders and the male cheerleaders. So it was like you always have like that perception, right? You always like, you know, because like we're jealous because they're hanging out with all the hot girls. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, oh, cheerleader, that's, you know, we're freaking big, tough, muscle, freaking football players. You know, testosterone, right? I would never, but anyway, so yeah, and pretty much like when we brought up to be the cheerleaders, like Vince McMahon paid for our cheerleading lessons, and then he paid for our gymnastic lessons. So
Oh, wow.
like, we never really had time off, especially in the first few months of the run. You know, so we go on the road Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You know, fly home Tuesday. Then Wednesday, we're doing. We have to show up at the University of Louisville for cheerleading lessons.
Wow.
Thursday, we're meeting with another coach to do gymnastic lessons at a gymnastics school, learning how to do round offs, back handsprings, back tucks. You know, so then we meet with a cheerleading coach at a field at a high school, you know, before we fly out on Friday. And like, we're going over different routines and trying our best, which we didn't do very well, by the way, to be in sync with each other. You know what I mean? So like our timing was right. So we basically, none of us were really originally cheerleaders. We were all athletes. You know, Nick was an amateur wrestler. You know, I played football. Ken played like football and pretty much every other sport. But basically, yeah, we just kind of learned how to do that, like as the gimmick went on and stuff like that. So it was really an interesting trial run.
And you guys got pretty, I guess you could say maybe thrown to the deep end in many ways. Within a year, you guys are literally in the ring with Hall of Famers, Kane, Big Show, Triple H, HBK, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes. Like, how was that for you growing up as a fan and being in the ring with literally all these legends?
Oh man, that's like a two-part question. I answer right there. That's so much to say about that, because like on one end, if you look at it from a personal level, like just take the wrestling part out of it, it's amazing, right? I mean, here I am, like this big wrestling fan my entire life, guys that I've watched growing up on TV as a kid, and now I'm in the ring doing what I love to do, and actually like they're my peers now. So it's like went from them just being a huge fan to like now I'm there, you know, we're peers, and we're actually on the biggest stage of them all, wrestling in these big arenas every single night. On the professional side, again, amazing. I mean, I think guys would have, a lot of guys, people can say what they want, but I think at the end of the day, deep down, I think they would kill for that opportunity as far as to learn and get that experience from those guys, because we basically, and I think Ziggler said this on an interview one time, we took 10 years of television experience, right, from like a normal average person, and we combined that 10 years of experience into 1 year based on the guys that we got to work with, guys that the brains we got to pick, you know, and just from getting that in-ring experience in front of a large audience on that kind of level, I mean, you can't substitute that, you know. It was like, you know, you're wrestling Shawn Michaels, Triple H 60 times, and Roddy Piper, Ric Flair about 60 times, all around the world, different countries and states. And then just being able to pick their brain, which I did a lot with Roddy Piper. I mean, that was like our thing, you know. Some guys would go out after the shows, we'd hang out in the hotel room, you know, and have a 6-pack of beer, you know, at the time. And and I would just sit under the learning tree, and I knew what kind of opportunity was given to me, because I was like, guys would kill for this position to be a sponge and just to freaking milk as much knowledge as I can, and actually go out and then perform, test it out, trial run, and get, you know, just get more critique and stuff. And that's what I did. I just learned as much as I can. I was a sponge for information from these guys.
Do you know if there was any kind of plans for you after the Spirit Squad, or was it just kind of a limbo period?
Yeah, it's well, originally there was a plan, but just like wrestling always is, cards subject to change. But yeah, no, the original plan was for us to split apart, right? Kenny was supposed to go singles as a heel, which I believe is the only really desired plan at the beginning that actually worked out, went the way it did. Johnny Jeter was supposed to go off singles as a babyface, and then it was supposed to be me, Nick, and Mitch as a tag team. And I don't think Mitch lasted much longer after that, but me and Nick, we both went back down to FCW after that, and then we were a tag team for a while until, and actually we came up and did a dark match against Gordy and Festus, I remember. And you know, because they were looking at both tag teams, and then shortly after that, it just, no, Nick was going to go his way, I was going to go my way, and I was a heel. You know, both heels as singles wrestlers. So that was like the desired plan, but I would say just the one thing, because I remember Kenny went off with Rated RKO after that and
Hmm.
did his singles run, but that was the original plan.
Okay. And after that, you started doing some indie bookings once again. But you found yourself in Ring of Honor. How did that
I
come
did.
about? Do they reach out to you? Do you kind of go to them and say, I'm available and, kind of
Yeah.
send them a reel?
Basically, how that all came about is after I got released with WWE, I had to make a decision. I was like, do I want to go back home to mom and dad, or do I want to go back to my roots and freaking still give this thing another shot? And I chose that route. So I moved back to Louisville, Kentucky, got involved in OVW. Jim Cornette was again, we needed some help on as far as his creative influence go, because we weren't drawing very well. So Jimmy came back to be the booker for OVW, and then that kind of rekindled our relationship from the past. And then, long story short, Ring of Honor, he was involved with Ring of Honor
Mm.
as kind of like booking that promotion as well. And he was, and then Jimmy always was a fan of mine. He always saw something in me that I had potential. And then I remember Bluegrass Brawl in Louisville, Kentucky. That was my opportunity for a tryout there with Ring of Honor. I remember looking like $1,000,000. I was 5% body fat, shredded at the time.
Mm.
I came in, kicked ass, and then that just kind of snowballed and led one thing to another. But long story short, once again, thanks to Jim Cornette, he was able to get my foot in the door at Ring of Honor, and then basically my work and all that kind of proved and backed it up otherwise.
And you also did some stuff with Major League Wrestling not too long ago.
Yeah.
Talk about that. I know they're still around. They're still doing their thing. There's more exposure for them. It seems like every month. What was that like working for that company?
Yeah, that was great. It was also a great experience. I remember we had a really great match with the Von Erichs.
Hmm.
Actually, we kind of like did a little program with them. I believe they were running their TVs in Queens, New York, at the ballroom. And yeah, I think we only did a few shots for them, but everyone was extremely professional. Great locker room. Again, it was just a good atmosphere. I'm glad to see them growing and
Yeah.
getting more opportunities. Anytime you can see a company grow and competition, that's a good thing. That gives more opportunity for guys and stuff like that. And yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about Major League Wrestling, Court Bauer, and just grateful that I could be a part of them. Hopefully, I could do some more dates with them in the future, so to speak.
Before MLW, you found yourself back in that cheerleading outfit, back to WWE,
Yeah.
getting involved in that storyline between Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. They were acknowledging the fact that Dolph was a Spirit Squad member back in the day. Usually, they didn't really mention anything until then. But
Yeah.
how did that happen as far as you coming back, and why do you think it didn't last any longer than it did?
Well, actually, the truth is that it lasted longer than what it was supposed to,
Okay.
because originally it was supposed to be a one-off,
Hmm.
and it was supposed to be a one deal, and boom, and then that's it. Basically, I remember being it was a baby shower, I think, for one of my cousins, and I get this text message from Dolph, and he's like, "Kayfabe, but the office is gonna call. They want to do a little something, because I'm doing something with the Miz, and just like you said, they never really brought the Spirit Squad back up until." Pretty much that moment, which is like,
Hmm.
gosh, years later.
Yeah.
So anyway, me and Kenny were actually the only two that were down to do it, and then we came to TV. It was supposed to be that one little segment with the Miz, and then Vince liked the response that it got, so he invited us back to the pay-per-view, which I believe was that following Sunday, because that was the big blow-off match between Miz and Dolph for the IC belt. So basically, they had this freaking killer match, whatever,
Hmm.
20 minutes long, and then we come down for a false finish. I think we got super kicked each one, and then for a big false finish. And then we came back, and Vince McMahon once again really liked the response to what happened, and also the writers were there, and I don't think the writers really remembered our run from back in the day, because I think they thought we were brand new or the
Yeah.
gift was fresh or something, because it's basically how they talk to us. But we really want to kind of keep this thing going and do some things with the tag champs, which I think were Rhino and Heath Slater at the
Hmm.
time. So once again, we came back, and I think when it was all said and done, we got like a 2.5 month run out of it. It was supposed to be a one-off, and basically, if the next question is how did it end, I just think it just ran its course, and that was really it. Like I said, I think we got more life out of it than what it should have been or originally was planned to. I remember doing like it was my first ever, by the way. Hopefully, only 17-man tag or whatever it was. But anyway, I remember going out there, and I just was the vibes, and I was like, I feel like this might be it, And but that being said, me and Kenny didn't go down with a fight. We obviously were emailing Stephanie with ideas, the writers with
Hmm.
ideas. Um, they kept on telling us the contracts were going to be coming. Fortunately, they never came.
Mm.
But yeah, and like we really thought that maybe they want to lock us up, but we just didn't work out that way. But grateful for the run. It freshens us up back again on the independents.
Yeah.
I think about back to work for WXW.
Mm.
Working on promotions around Europe. We went to Australia with House of Hardcore. We worked for Tommy at the ECW Arena. I got to work guys like the Rock and Roll Express and Shane Douglas. And, it just really opened up just a whole new experience and different opportunities for us. And then, that's pretty much how that went.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up is says how much of that influenced your bookings, but it sounds like because
Yeah.
of that run, you guys, got some new eyeballs, maybe even some old ones, and now their Spirit Squad sounds like they're in demand outside of your WWE run, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. Because like in wrestling, it's like a sponge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You dip the sponge in the water and you bring that sucker out. You know what I mean? And then hopefully you keep it or able to keep dipping it in water and wringing it out. But what you don't want is that sponge to get old and then throw it away and then pick up a new sponge. You know what I mean? You want to get as much longevity as you can out of that sponge, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I mean that's basically what it did. It refreshes it. It dipped us back in the water, refreshes us up. We were able to be put to good use for a while, and I think we did it for a couple of years. Yeah, just going all around the world, so many different states, different countries. And that's how the MLW run came about. To be honest with you, we did a shot with the Young Bucks at Ring of Honor. I remember. So it was really cool.
I want to thank you for your time, but I do want to ask one more question. Is what are
Sure.
you up to? What are you up to these days? Because you mentioned before you had a couple health issues.
Yeah.
Just doing my research, I saw kind of you still having matches. I think the last one you had was maybe late 2023. Am I right about that?
Actually, the last match I had was about, but just to sum it up, and I have no problem putting this out there, is that my health issues that I had was actually blood clots came in my leg. And I had to be put on blood thinners. And then unfortunately, when you're on blood thinners, you can't do any physical activity. So that was like a huge freaking blow to me, So that's when I was really focusing on the coaching aspect of pro wrestling, because obviously I've experienced doing that. I wasn't going to sit at home doing nothing, But thankfully, by the grace of God, the blood clots went away. Able to get off the blood thinners, So now that I'm off the blood thinners, I'm able to get back in the ring. So I've been 100% cleared by doctors. And then my first match back was actually about maybe a month ago. I think I said a couple weeks. I think it was a month ago with FTW, Fight the World Wrestling here in Largo, Florida. And then obviously, yeah, like I said before, I'm coaching still every Thursday, sometimes Tuesday nights at the FTW Wrestling School in Largo. So if anyone's interested in becoming a pro wrestler and they want to achieve their dream, learn this business the right way, come to FTW Wrestling. And now I have just trying to get myself back out there, man. Trying to just do my thing and kind of just, I'm really confident in myself. I believe in myself, and I want to get another run going out there, doing this thing to the best of my ability. There's a lot of great talent out there. I want to test myself, push myself. I want to show people that I can still go, and that I know I can go, and that I'm one of the best out there. And all I need is a platform and a commercial opportunity to showcase what I can do, not only on the ring but on the microphone as well. I'm reinventing my look. Got new gear, new boots coming. I'm training like a beast in the animal. I'm going to try to get in that jacked and shredded, I want to make this, I hate, it's that cliche setting, right? Oh, it's just getting started. The best is yet to come, But you know what? I'm going to give it my best shot to make this the best that yet to come, because I'm motivated, I'm determined, and I want to be the best version of myself going forward. I'm in a great mental headspace right now, and let's do this thing. I got 2 shows, UPW, was ALW here in Florida. That's in September. And then I got a few in October. So if you want to book me, because those dates are filling up fast, I got a couple weekends left in October coming up. September's looking pretty packed, but you can email me at themikemondo@gmail.com. My Twitter is themikemondo, facebook.com/MikeMondo. Instagram, did I say that? The Mike Mondo. No. There you go. So those are my plugs. Hit me up if you want to book me. Seminars, podcast interviews, wrestling appearances. Yeah, that's it, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's so great to hear that you're still going at it. If ever you make your way to the west coast of Los Angeles, I'll be there front row with my pom poms. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. And is there anything else you want to say to all the fans watching out there?
Just want to say thank you for all your support. I really appreciate you guys. Without you, I wouldn't be able to have the career that I have today. I wouldn't be able to live my dream. And whether you love me, whether you hate me, hey, as long as you react to me, that's all that matters. But I really appreciate you guys and all your support. And I look forward to actually, because I get a lot of great comments and stuff like, social media wise. Hopefully we can meet person and get that personal experience together. So thank you again for all your support. And I love you guys.
Cool. And don't forget, go get your Mikey action figures.